Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Hold on 1 second. Okay, perfect. Okay, let's get a couple things straight. Okay, the captures coming in. Okay, all right, we're here. We're here. We're in. We're Erev Shabbos. The time period before Shabbat. Any thoughts, any concept before before we like kind of like go forward, talk it out. Anything anybody want to throw in there?
All right. All right. So no, you want? No, no, we're good.
You hey, hey, the thing is, you just got to create an open environment of discussion, right? But the thing is, there's a very the thing about there's a very powerful concept of intention, right? And the power of the concept of intention is that intention determines the outcome of something as it ultimately manifests, right? But it was the intention that was the GPS. The physical manifestation was just kind of like the route, the road, the process of getting there, right? And so, before Shabbat, is that time of intention, right? So you go shopping, you're preparing the house, you're getting the kids together, getting yourself together, thinking about going to shul, all these different things, right? So on that point, on that point, the power of Shabbat is before Shabbat, starts, right? And the care and the dedication and the connection that we have to Shabbat, and it's like you think about it, what we've been learning, this week is how every mitzvah connects us to the Shekhinah and connects our soul to the light force of the Creator, right? It's a whole like circuitry, through restriction, and through this restriction, we receive, and then that restriction connects us to the God's presence in this world, and we create the circuitry in reality. But then they say by Shabbat, the person who keeps Shabbat is like keeping the entire Torah. So what we could learn from that is that Shabbat itself, in the process of Shabbat, is feeding every single aspect, of ourself, right? Like every aspect of ourselves. There's 613 parts of ourselves, right? And when you keep Shabbat, it's as if you're keeping the entire Torah, right? And so from that perspective, then it's like, okay, well, um, by keeping Shabbat, I'm basically bringing light to all 613 parts of myself, right? Because Shabbat is just keeping the entire Torah. So from that perspective, it's like, okay, so that's what we're doing, right? So the intentions going into Shabbat, has to be such in a way that the preparation for Shabbat and everything for Shabbat is in a way, us saying that we want to make an opening, right? We want to make an opening between the light of Shabbat in ourselves, because maybe during this week, maybe we made mistakes, maybe we had judgment towards certain people, maybe we had certain things that we did, whatever, ego, vanity, whatever, selfishness, right? And we created certain blockages, right? We created certain blockages. So we created certain blockages during the week, right? And so we know that Shabbat is when all of our arteries and our veins and our organs and our limbs and everything's receiving light. But the only thing that stops that light is blockages, right? So before Shabbat is a time where we think about maybe this blockage, maybe I did this thing, this whole concept, the whole thing, whatever. But that process starts, right? Thursday night, right? When we start to think about these things that may stop us or have blockages to receive all of what Shabbat wants to give to us, right? So Erev Shabbat is a very special time. And it's a very special time, in terms of, preparation, but it's like the idea that we're feeding all of the limbs, all of the arteries, all the organs of our body by just obeying God and enjoying, right? Oneg, right? Like the whole concept of enjoying Shabbat in having everything that you want, right? Everything that you could think of, and having that as like your reality, right? Because that's what Shabbat is, right? Your favorite things, whatever you dress nice, nice clothes, and you're enjoying. So, what is a lesson out of that? Like, what's the concept? There's a big idea, right? The time where all of the limbs of our body and everything about us is filled as if we're keeping the entire Torah, right? And we're there enjoying. Right? It's not like, oh, we're keeping the entire Torah and it's like, oh, it's hardship, it's difficulty, this whole thing. It's like, no, we're asked we keep Shabbat, Shabbat keeps us, And that idea is the on the spiritual level that, when we keep Shabbat, it's as if we're keeping the entire Torah. So that idea of Shabbat and keeping the entire Torah is, we understand the Torah is what? 613 mitzvahs. And so those 613 mitzvahs that we keep in the Torah, we aspire to keep in the Torah, are connected to the 613 parts of the human existence. And not only that, it's connected to the 613 parts of the Shekhinah, right? So that's what's going on. So when we use our free will, our bechira, right, our free will, then through our free will, we choose to keep the Torah or not. Right? And so when we choose to keep the Torah, we make a connection with God's light, with our soul, with our body, and God's presence, the Shekhinah. Right? We make a complete connection to those things, and thus we experience life. If we choose not to, right, it's the opposite of life. So that's where we're at, right? And that part of appreciation, that part of connection, is it's just where we're going out. So Erev Shabbos, or the process of before Shabbat, this process before Shabbat is a very special time in terms of intention. And some people read Tehillim, Psalms, some people, maybe, do a little bit of fasting, whatever, there's different traditions, different communities. But the point is saying that, for ourselves, we want to, have in mind that, this process of before the action is just as important as the action itself. And so the preparing for Shabbat, we have to think, well, we're cleaning this. Some people have a meditation when it comes to like the cleaning on Shabbat, that they're actually removing internal things that they did to themselves in the past, present, maybe even in past lifetimes, they've done these things, right? So there's different meditations that people have, but it's something that really has to be thought about. What does the process of before Shabbat mean to me? Because it's not stam. It's not like, some simple thing like, oh, well, yeah, okay, you have Shabbat Friday night. No, and I'm not saying any of you guys think this way. I'm just saying, just in terms of a point of reference, what is it like? What does it mean? Go ahead. Somebody say something.
Yes. I really appreciate it because throughout the years of keeping Shabbat, what we've experienced is that Shabbat gets better and better and better, and we get
Amen.
more and more refreshed on Shabbat. But I tell you what, in the last couple of years, really, even this last past year, one of the things that we looked at was number one, the Shalom Aleichem story and song
Mm.
really made me more intentional as far as in Shabbat and keeping Shabbat. And the next thing was that we were talking about this past Shabbat. Just we were talking to our daughters and we were telling our daughters, imagine if there's a young man that wants to take your hand in marriage, right? And he goes and he sends a messenger, special order messenger to inform me and your mother. And then he comes, his father comes and meets with us and everything, and we'll communicate. And then we set up a time for you all to meet. And what does he do? He goes to a very fancy suit store and he goes and buys a brand new suit and he's so excited and he goes and he gets flowers. He goes and get all of these things just to meet you for the first time, right? And I said, if you knew that he did all these things, how would that make you all feel? And they told us, say, oh, special, it make us feel beautiful, like wow, this is awesome, And I said, that's what we start keeping the Shabbat and preparing for Shabbat on Sunday. And we start moving towards keeping Shabbat. We every day is something that we're doing to make Shabbat better, to let Hashem know how precious this day is to us.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. Yeah, that's a spirit that brings angels into a house. Is that that focus on the concept of Shabbat, and that's something that it really when I came to Israel, and I said that before, was coming to Israel and living in Meir Sharim, in Geula, in these places, you really, that's what the whole focus of the community is. Everyone's living for Shabbat, right? And every day is a building block towards Shabbat, right? Especially after Tuesday, right? That's when everyone really kind of gears in that mindset. And so, the thing is it's just being in that place, right now, right? And being, conscious of that and feeling that and knowing that and being aware of it and just living in that reality, because everything that we do, as we learn, I think, I don't know if we haven't got to this point yet, but when we do a mitzvah, right, which is fulfilling a commandment, of God, every single body part that we use to fulfill that mitzvah receives light from the Creator, right? Every single thing. So you know, um, the idea of remembering Shabbat and making it holy, which is the fourth commandment, right? So everything that we do to fulfill that commandment is a mitzvah, right? It's a commandment of God, every action. So like say if a person's cooking for Shabbat, right? So that means that every part of their physical body that's part of this creation of Shabbat, their hands, their arms, their back, their everything, all the parts, their muscles, tissues, everything that goes into making this effort of standing and mixing and this and their thinking process, whatever, they have to know that the light of the Creator is coming down from the heavens and entering that part of their body. And that part of that body is connected. Within inside of that part of the body is the name of God, right? We just learned that yesterday. So everything that we do in preparation and going to for Shabbat is making that whole thing. Even like say you're driving to go and get food for Shabbat. That effort of going to buy food with the kavana, with the intentions of going to buy food, that car now becomes a holy vessel. The metal in that car, everything about that car has now achieved its purpose, right? The purpose of creation, as we learned, by Rav Ashlag, is for the soul that's in the body to acknowledge the Creator, right? That's it, the full circle. Like I am here in this world, and I have desires and I have needs and I have wants and I have all these things, but ultimately my purpose is to connect back to the creator. And in order for me to do that, my desires and my needs and my wants and everything about, I have to put them in control. I have to put them in check. And I have to put them in check in accordance to the halakha, right? And so that the laws of the Torah allow me to put those needs, those wants, and those desires and those feelings in check. Because if they don't have that, they could run wild, right? So with that being said, um, with that being said, um, that's this process of before Shabbat and the preparation of Shabbat is knowing that all the physical actions, everything that we're doing is literally bringing light to everything. Like when we're sweeping, when we're cleaning, when we're washing, when we're cooking, when we're, all these things, everything that we're doing, every physical movement, we're doing it, but we have to be conscious of it. And we also have to ask God that if we use any of these parts of our bodies at any time of our life to maybe commit sin, right? Or to not do the things that we were supposed to do at the right time, or we were ignorant of the laws, then we could say, hey, you know what? Now's the time to cleanse that. Now I'm using the body in perfection to serve you, right? So I'm serving you in every aspect of my body through the preparation of Shabbat, right? Every aspect, right? Every muscle, every limb, everything. I'm serving you, everything that I do, right? So, but the thing is correcting maybe past times where we were not using our limbs and our bodies and our muscles and our tissues in a way of complete holiness. Maybe we already had that. And if we already had that, okay, so then we'll elevate to a higher level. So anybody have any points before we go forward?
Or not necessarily a point, just some additional strength for my wife. Her best friend of like 25 years, her mother tragically just suddenly passed away yesterday. So that's been a huge, just energy shift. And to my wife's married, she's, like obviously trying to do things for her best friend, but she's like, I'm gonna be home on time and light candles. Like she's thinking about Shabbat, the whole time. So just
Ochino, you went on mute. You went on mute. Okay. So, anyways, Otto, you went on mute. If you come back, I don't know what happened. But the thing is, so he's saying like this. He's saying that there's people that are close, to them, and people are their souls are elevating, and so it's important to be aware of that, right? Because as souls are ascending and leaving this world, there's also souls coming down into this world on Shabbat, right? And so the dynamic of the concept of Shabbat is also saying that there's the sages teach that there's an aspect of the soul that is either received or strengthened on Shabbat, right? And so this idea of Shabbat is also like acquiring what we're missing. You got to realize, and also you got to keep in mind we're in between Pesach in Matan Torah, Shavuot, right? So we're going through this process of 50 days where we go through 50 days of bringing down the particular destiny light, right? The destiny light that we're supposed to bring down, we're bringing that destiny, light down each of the 49, 50 days, right? And so also with Shabbat, this is a whole process. So that's why we're challenging certain ideas and certain concepts during this time because we don't know what our we don't know what our we don't know what our destiny is, right? And we don't know we don't know what our destiny is, and we don't know who we're supposed to become, right? So we want to create a vessel in a space for God to let us become who we're supposed to become, and not say, okay, well, up until this point, I've had this life. Okay, so up until this point, you had this life, but now is a time to even go even further, right? To even a higher level. So what does that mean? We don't know, right? Only God can tell us, right? But what my job is as a rabbi is to be in a place of saying like, hey, you know what? Um, the people who learn with me, the people who learn by me, these things, it's like let's do as much as we can to remove those layers, right? And those belief systems so they can just go as far as they can with the Torah. Because a lot of times people come into the Torah, and I'm talking about the rabbinical Torah, right? The sages and all these different things. They come into it with other belief systems, right? Foreign belief systems, not Jewish belief systems. And because they come in and they already have families and they have things going on or whatever, so they can't do what I did, which is like, oh, just jump on a plane and come to Israel and, sleep in like Meir Sharim, and go to yeshiva, right? Not everybody has that ability because there you would be able to kind of like absorb and build a unique outlook. But if you're in North America, what do? Right? So the thing is that so a lot of times people come in to the Torah world and they have these their belief systems that they came with, and there's no real mechanism to challenge that because people have lives, people have children, people have jobs, people have responsibilities. So it's like it's so much time that they could dedicate towards learning, right? As we're in yeshiva in those communities, that's the whole community. They wake up in the morning, like people go to work, they go to they go to morning seder. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the culture, right? So I was a single guy, so it was easy, and I didn't have kids, right? So it was easy for me to be like, okay, all right, this is popping, So I want to do this, right? But the reality is that the benefit of that environment is that you get to challenge belief systems, right? And that's why a guy can, go to Israel and be pretty much secular and then come back in 3 years and then, he's in black and white, and doesn't even want to see anything that's not kosher, right? Because the environment itself challenges belief systems, right? And what are the belief systems that are challenged? The things that we've been reading about. We were reading about the Khazari and this, the belief systems of like the Roman world, versus the world of the Torah, the Greek world, which is pretty much American consciousness, but mixed with workforce, right? The thing about America, which is different than Roman and Greek philosophy, is that there's a strong focus on workforce development. So a lot of these, paganistic ideas that are that America utilizes, right? As a way that make people to go to work and make money. Those ideas, are rooted in Greek and Roman philosophy, right? Now, the reason why we don't inherently see it as exactly like that is because of because of capitalism, right? And its marketplace. So those same philosophies of denying the soul and focus on the external self is rooted now into consumption. And consumption is access to pleasure, right? So now you have a society addicted to pleasure, right? They want pleasure, they want more pleasure, this type of thing. So anyway, so that's the situation, right? That's the situation. And so how do we deal with that? And that's what we have to deal with, right? People come into the Torah world, religious world. How do we deal with that? Because you have all these other ideas that exist. We were all raised with these ideas. The point is, how strong are we as individuals, right? Are we able to look at all the beliefs that we were given to us and look at them objectively, or because we had emotional connections with them, and intellectual connections with them that we don't want to challenge them. And I'm saying that's the separation point, right? Because it's like that's what it is. Like, so for me, it was a simple point. It was just like, it wasn't so simple. Like, you know, we grew up like really like very successful parents, right? And we had a very like expansive understanding of religion, spirituality, Islam. You know, our parents were into therapy. We went to therapists growing up and family meetings and all this like stuff. I mean, we really this I mean, like every Sunday we would have family meetings, you know, and people said, you know, when I say people, my siblings, you know, people would sit down and talk about, you know, different things they experienced throughout the week and how they felt and how this person hurt this person's feelings, and we'll try to resolve it, you know, this type of stuff, right? So we grew up with that, like very progressive parents, you know, and obviously, you know, it was a good look, right? Because it allowed us to kind of like venture out and figure out what life is. But the point is saying that even though that was great and it was very progressive, especially compared to all of my, you know, peers, like people I grew up with or whatnot. But at the end of the day, the root destination did not exist. Right? Like even if like say you're in a family and everyone's really progressive and they're working on themselves and their emotional development and this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what is the goal of all of this? To experience more pleasure, right? That's the point. The point is saying, well, I'm going to be so at peace with everything around me and everything that's going on that I'm going to experience more pleasure. I'm going to feel safer. I'm going to feel more free. I'm going to feel more accepted. I'm going to feel more loved. All these things, right? That's what I'm going to do, right? That's what's going to happen because I achieved this level of emotional awareness. Okay, so the point is saying that the point is saying that but as a Jew and based off of the Torah, all of these things, all these experiences that I'm having are there to correct my soul, right? And then as I correct my soul and as I grow in my perfection as it relates to my relationship to the infinite world, the world of energy, the world that I live in, right? As that relationship strengthens through me adhering to the Torah, not only do I elevate, but I achieve the purpose of why I was created in the first place. So, which one is more of a compelling argument, right? What is a more compelling argument? The argument of, okay, well, you know, I came into this world and, you know, it's just, it's the Greek understanding, but it's just packaged differently, right? It's packaged in Islam, it's practiced in Christianity, it's even practiced even to a degree, even in Judaism, right? Like if people are into the religion, the conservative and reform that take out the halakha, once you take out the halakha, and then there's no question on the soul, right? So these other sects of Judaism, they also are holding by this too. So the whole world is saying, take out the soul of spirituality and give it an external blanket. And you, as you connect to that, it's the same way as connecting to the nation state or the, you know, the country, you know, that you're from. And then, but then I have to ask myself, well, how does that feed my soul? Oh, we're not concerned with that. You know, we're not concerned with this dynamic. So that's the battle, you know, that everyone has to deal with themselves. Because if I have a soul and my soul needs light, and that's what I've been yearning for my whole life, then you have to accept that the halakha is all you have. Right? I got major things going on in my life. I was just having a conversation. That's why I was a little bit late because this person I was learning with was like, you know, kind of really opening up. And I was like, God, I just need like another 10 minutes, 15 minutes with this person before I go and come into with you guys. But the thing is like at the end of the day, at this level, it's like, you know, you have Martin Luther King, you have Malcolm X, you know, you have people, you know, who made impacts, you know, at different times in, you know, American history, right? And I'm focused on the African Americans because, you know, they're the ones who made the real impact in America, right? And you look at them and you look at, certain missions, like what was their mission, right? You look at like, Malcolm X, and it's like, his mission was like, like a more active Black America, the ballot or the bullet, right? You better go and vote. You better be active. We better get involved, right? You see Martin Luther King, Martin Luther King had a different approach. He was kind of like in this place of, I don't know if the word is passive, passivity. I don't know if that's even a word. Maybe I made it up, but he was very passive approach opposed to like say Malcolm X, which his thing was like it's about more inclusion, integration, seeing that we're all equal and we could just kind of like engage as human beings, right? And there's other subgroups, political groups, whatever. But the point is just saying that when we look at the whole scenario, right? The reality is that none of their end goals had anything to do with the correction of the soul, right? They were operating in the world of the five senses. This is the world that's going on. This is the climate that's going on, and this is how we have to interact, right? Some through, major resistance, some through inclusion, right? Whatever. But the point is saying this is the thought process, and not just by Malcolm and Martin, but also other people, Kennedy's, all these other people that were in America too around those times, right? And so my point is just saying that if we're in the world of the Torah, then we have to look at those ambitions that they had and ask ourselves, why do we know about them? Out of all the leaders, all the great souls that came out of the African American community, why do we know about these guys? Is it because Black people came together and says, we're going to put together a trust fund that's going to fund so much money in creating awareness and publicity for these characters so our future generations know? Or was it institutions that in many ways we were resisting against took those identities and then kind of like memorialized them? And again, I'm not trying to diss, because again, it becomes emotional, right? Because for us, Black history is a form of the Torah, right? It's like it's who we are. And I'm holding back and I'm saying like maybe it's not. I'm saying maybe that's not who we are. Maybe who we are as human beings, and we live in this world, and this experience that was created called the Black experience was something that our particular souls needed to be corrected in specific ways. And this experience called white was the experience that was for these particular souls that need to be corrected a certain way. But the point is, the end product is for both souls to be completed and connected to God. So in order for me to get to that place, I have to look at the experience that I'm having as a tikkun, as a form of correction, right? I'm correcting my soul. My soul is being corrected, right? I'm going through this experience. I'm going through this hardship. Maybe it's not hardship. If I knew it was correcting my soul, maybe I'd be dancing about it. Oh, by you, it's a hardship. By you, it's a hardship. By me, it's a celebration, because I'm only in this world for that reason. I'm only in this world to correct my soul. I'm only in this world for that reason. So from that perspective, right? So from that perspective, if I'm only in this world to correct my soul, then it's like, okay, well, that hardship that I thought that I was having is really like, I needed that whack on the head. I needed that rejection. I mean, I feel stronger because of it. I'm more connected to God because of it, right? And so that place is where we're at, right? And so that's the exciting part about life, right? Because now, if I'm in here to correct my soul, then that means like everything I experience, moments where I have, $10 in my bank account, or I have, $200,000 in my bank account, or $2 million in my bank account, or 200 million in my account. Well, all right, let's keep going. 2 billion. I'm in. But the point is saying, whatever that amount is in my bank account is all part of the correction process, right? When I have the ability to feed 50,000 people, is no different than barely having enough money to, to feed my own home, right? It's circumstantial, right? And it's how we operate in that moment, right? And that's the thing about life. And once you get to that, you get bigger challenges. You want wealth, okay? You want wealth, okay? So show Hashem, because we want holy wealth, right? So show Hashem that, I'm not tempted by this amount. Hashem say, oh, so you're not tempted by it, so you need some more money. I mean, if that's what you're saying I need, that's what you're saying I need. I mean, I'm just saying I'm not tempted about it, right? And then so Hashem brings a whole new revenue stream into your life, right? Not because the revenue stream is fulfilling you more, but it's because it's more of a challenge. And through this challenge, you're going to be forced to elevate to a higher. You're going to have to be forced to expand your vessel and receive a higher level of light. So the money is never fulfilling us, right? All the things, all the pleasures of the world are not fulfilling us. Only the connection to the soul is. The pleasure and all these things are just kind of like enhancements, right? They're enhancements for the connection, right? Men and women coming together, there's a pleasure there, but the real connection is the ability to bring a soul into this world, right? And to create children, right? But that pleasure is an enhancement in that effort, right? But people could misuse that effort, right? They could use it in the wrong way. They could use that pleasure in the wrong way, right? So that pleasure that they're using in the wrong way, is now bringing them destruction, right? Versus bringing a holy soul in this world to make the world a better place, right? So that's the duality that we got to deal with. So that's what we're working through in this process of before Shabbos is connecting to pleasure that seemingly there's no reward for it, right? There's a pleasure with us preparing for Shabbat. There's a pleasure of us getting ready for there's for getting ready to receive the Shekhinah on a deeper level, but just having that meditation, right? And having that personal time, right? Well, maybe you may need to be separated, you may need to walk alone, or you may even be closer together, whatever you need, right? Everyone's different. Every reality, every relationship's different. But that dynamic of just the sanctity of preparing for Shabbat, right? And the sanctity of seeing the Creator in the preparation of Shabbat, as God prepared the world, right, before man was created, right? In that same way that God prepared the world before man was created, we are preparing the world, in that way. We're acting like the Creator and preparing the world for that, for Shabbat, right? Which is the time from the Garden of Eden. So I want to bring one point, but any thoughts before we go further?
Go ahead.
I would like to know, Chief Rabbi, how do you all prepare to like share meals, with different families and so forth? What does that process look like in Jerusalem?
Yeah. So it's one of the most amazing things about Jewish life is the Shabbat circuits, right? So there's like literally like depending on like where you're at, obviously, but there's people hosting meals all over the place, right? Like it's one of the biggest things is to host a meal because when you host a meal, it brings so much shefa, so much holiness into the house, right? To provide meals for people that need, or couples, or this, or to have guests in general. Just to have guests is such a huge thing. So that's like written in the Talmud and the Gemara, all these different things, different Kabbalistic stuff, just deep stuff, right? And so so from that frame, there's like a whole world of it, right? So like right now, in my inbox, I have a bunch of people that want to connect on Shabbat in different ways, right? So I have to check it after, we finish this. Sure, but the point is just saying like it's just a huge world, and normally it just revolves around inviting people over, right? And and inviting people over, and everyone comes, and you're the balabayit, you're the head of the house, and we're on for the ride, So like when we go out to places for Shabbos, or people come by me, come by my house, it's they're on for the ride. So we provide the meals, but it's like something that's so normalized, but probably be if you really sat back and thought about it, probably one of the most exciting parts about Jewish life is just the relationships that are built out of Shabbat. Like all the relationships. When you see Jews are like very close with each other, like in a weird way, it's because of Shabbat. Is because like when you come together on Shabbat and you have a meal together and you talk about life, and you're doing it because God told you to do this. It's not like you're just doing it because it's a great dinner, or you got invited over. Say, no, God told us to do this, so we got to do it. Maybe some of us would have chose to do other things. I'm not saying me, but other people maybe, right? And so that special time that you build, and even being here in Israel, it's like so many places I went. Like I had a meeting at Google like a few years ago before COVID, right? And we're just talking about different ideas, whatever. But the thing is, it's like the conversation is like, okay, what are you doing for Shabbat? I meet with people in the government, right? People around. Okay, so what are you doing for Shabbat? If they're in Jerusalem, where are you at for Shabbat? Okay, so come over by me. Like that's just a normal thing, and it's just like you're going there. It's just this whole excitement. You're walking in there because no one, you're not driving, right? So you're walking from your place. You're coming. You're bringing wine, maybe dessert, maybe bread, whatever. You agree to bring something, and everyone's contributing to the meal in some type of way. Normally I'm the guy who comes and brings all the Torah stuff. So I got this Devar Torah, this inspirational message, but in general, we always bring wine, this type of thing. So you're doing that, and it's exciting, and you build really intimate relationships with people. Where it's like when you see them out on the street, like I see people all the time. I walk down the street and we see each other. I never speak to this person other than Shabbat, but I see him on the street and we give each other the look. I know you, you know me. You know what I mean? And we keep it moving, right? Or people I spent Shabbat with years ago. Now I'm in a new place, and now they're in that new place, and then they know people, and they're like, "Oh, Mordecai," blah blah blah. So it's just a very intimate experience, and that's one of the great benefits of living in a Jewish community, religious Jewish community, right? Because it's just a whole exciting circuit of community. Growing up, like in Los Angeles or whatever, it's like I mean, you knew people you got along with. You had friends, maybe you played sports, whatever. They kind of like had kind of like communities in that way. Like parents that know each other for various reasons, and people invite each other over. Hey, we're having a birthday party, come over. But so much of the Jewish community is built around what they call simchot, right? Like different happy events, right? So people getting married, people getting engaged, people having Shabbat meals, people having, Rosh Hashanah meals, Sukkot, this, whatever, blah, blah, blah. All these different things, and people having events for Torah and this, whatever, dedication events, whatever. So it's like in the community itself, there's so much action going on. Right. And this is even by American communities. I would say even more by American communities because it's like so insulated as we're in Israel. It's like so open. You know what I mean? It's like everyone's Jewish, everywhere, every street has a synagogue. You know what I mean? So it's not that. And Israelis tend to like know each other. And like, anyways, the point is just saying that, yeah, so it's a very exciting thing and just the keeping of Shabbat in general. It's like every week, it's like you go deeper and deeper into a different reality. It's like you go deeper and deeper into the rabbit's hole. You're just more and more separated from everything that you knew, and it's like and being okay with that, and being comfortable with that, and think about Yosef, right, and how Yosef had to go on this whole journey. It becomes something beyond the imagination of even his siblings, to the fact that they couldn't even recognize him, right? Like their thought process couldn't imagine that their sibling became the head of the world, the viceroy. And so through Yosef, we have that strength to kind of like go on that path of like separation, but ultimate unification, right? Not saying like, oh, I'm gone forever, but no, but I went on this journey and I'm going to be put into a place that future generations are going to have even more success than all of us, right? And so that's what Joseph was saying to his brothers. He's like, hey, God, you may have had evil intentions, but God put me here, right? And look at how many lives have been saved, because you know what I mean. So anyways, so yeah, so I wanna go into text, but any points on that? I guess we kind of like went on that point. So, this is intense. Hold on. All right, so we're gonna read a little bit about Shabbat. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, so it's talking about like this different. This is Shari Kadusha, Rabbi Chaim Vital, and we're in this mindset of like this frame of reference of the mitzvahs, the mitzvahs for the soul and all these things, right? So it says Shabbat, Yidua ki hu Meshekul Lakol Ha Mitzvot. Okay. Vekol Rashaim. All right. So he says like this. He's talking about those wicked people. All right. So he says Shabbat, right? So what's going on in Shabbat? And we're talking about different connections to the soul. And so we're going into Shabbat. So just learn this part, right? We're not going to learn the whole thing. We're just going to learn this part, what it says about Shabbat. Shabbat is known to be equal to all the mitzvot. Ooh, who just said that? He says, even the wicked are granted repriete on Shabbat. I don't know, like, they're granted, like, they get a free pass. And the fires of purgatory, of Gehinnom, are dimmed for those in them. So even the people who are in living in hell, right? Even the people who are living in hell, they on Shabbat, that even those fires are lessened, right? Like the furnace. However, when it comes to those who transgress Shabbat, the fires are not dimmed even on Shabbat. Our sages of blessed memory state, if only the Jewish people would keep 2 consecutive Shabbats in accordance with the halacha of the Torah, they would be immediately redeemed. He says, our sages of blessed memory. So there's an idea that says if the Jewish people just kept 2 Shabbosim back to back, that everything would the whole world would be corrected. Our sages in blessed memory state, anyone who observes Shabbat in accordance with its laws, even if he is an idolater like the generation of Enoch, he is forgiven as it states. Praiseworthy is the man Enoch who does this, and the person who grasps it tightly, who guards the Shabbat against desecration. So through Malachot, right? He says, do not read against desecration, but rather he is forgiven. He says, and it is likewise written, if you restrain your foot because it is the Shabbat, restrain from accomplishing your own desires by the holy day. If you proclaim Shabbat a delightful and holy day, Hashem is honored. And your honor, it will be not engaged in your own affairs, but seeking your own needs and discussing the forbidden. Then you will delight in Hashem. He says, if you do not engage in your own affairs and do not seek in that. So the thing is really thinking about, what is my conversation on Shabbat? Right? Am I keeping Shabbat in the mind or just physically? Or am I keeping it in both? Right? Because what Chaim Vital is saying, he's asking us to say, what does it mean to keep Shabbat in the mind? What it means to keep Shabbat in the mind, that I don't want to engage with any of the things that I do during the week. And I want to be completely submerged in holiness in all my activities for these 25 hours. Right? So that's what he's saying. Am I keeping Shabbat in the mind? Right? And he says, and then will delight in Hashem, and the mount you will strive the heights of the world. And he says like this, and I will provide you the heritage of your forefather Yaakov, for the mouth of Hashem has spoken. All right. So anyway, so that's where we're at on that's where we're at on this point, right? And so this is what Shabbat is, and that's where we're at. And we're having this discussion, not that we're going to have this discussion forever, right? But this discussion that we're having is a discussion that you'll have with, family members, and discussions you'll have with students. It's saying like to really sit back and say, hey, you know what? We learned once, right, that before Shabbat is so incredibly holy. And we should treat it in such a high regard and know that all the mitzvahs, all the actions that we do on this day, meaning Thursday night on, is we're literally bringing down the pre-light of Shabbat. And there's a lot of things, and we'll go into it maybe a little bit next week. Maybe, who knows where God will take us. We don't know where God's taking us. He's bringing us to new realities every week. There's no set curriculum we're doing. No, we're free. We're moving forward. But the key thing is we're getting closer to Mount Sinai. We're getting closer to the 6th of Sivan, and that full manifestation of understanding with the light that God gave to us on the night of Pesach, right? And so we're going through those stages, and we're going there, and we got to separate. I have to be a human being first. I have to be a human being first, which means there's a soul and there's a body. That I have to start there. I'm not jumping into race. I'm not jumping into religion. I'm just saying I'm starting there. And then from that place, I'm going to take on the wisdom of Adam, right? Him being the first man, and I'm going to have a communication with Hashem, right? And I'm going to learn about my relationship with Hashem. That's in the frame of Adam, right? And through Noah and Abraham, we learn about our responsibility to others, right? And then through Yaakov, we learn about, on Mount Sinai, the responsibility of the relationship of community, right? So it's just saying that like this is where we're at right now. So that's why I have to challenge blackness. I have to challenge, the church ideas and the Islam ideas and the Jewish ideas and all these ideas that, we've been presented with, because it's okay to walk into these things, but walk into it, right? If you choose to want to go into that belief system, at least start not from my mom and dad said this, or my community believes in this, or there's billions of people who believe this. I can't go along with that. I'm the seed of Abraham. I reject the whole world, right? So I'm coming from that aspect, right? So that aspect of Abraham, who denied the world and denied their beliefs and said there's a Hashem when the whole world says no, there isn't. Right? So from that seed, I have the ability to do the same thing now and say, okay, hey, I'm a human being. How does this belief connect to me? Because there could be some beliefs presented to me, even in the community that I'm a part of, that may not make that connection. And then now I got to go and do research. But I don't have to accept it as it being a totality. Right? And that's a mistake that people make when they come into Judaism, because there's so many rules, there's so many halachot, there's so many minhagim traditions, there's so many humarot, stringencies, right? That cultures and communities have developed over time, in certain belief systems that aren't even, sometimes they're not even Jewish belief systems or Torah belief systems, right? So I'm giving that tool of saying like, no, you're a human being and you're choosing the Torah in the same way that your ancestors chose the Torah, because this fits well for your soul. Because you're taking into account that your soul needs to be connected to the infinite source. And this Torah and the commandments is the bridge to get there, like the umbilical cord to the mother, right? And the kid. And so that dynamic, that's what it is. So sometimes on your journey, you'll be exposed to things, exposed to people that are look just like you, and some who look totally different than you, right? And they may present ideas that may not resonate to your natural belief system as a human being. And so then now you have the power as a Jew to go on your investigative inquiry process, right? And that inquiry process that you go on, right, allows you to um, to be able to say, okay, well, this is how this particular person is holding, or maybe even this set of people, but it is not the totality of God's message. So I could keep it moving because I've had experiences with people on my journey. I'm like, whoa, this person's a rabbi and they're acting like this or they're doing that. Oh man, like I'm trying to get married. People hating on me. Like I'm talking about when I was in that process, right? I thought we was all the same. But that's that person. That has nothing to do with the Torah. That's nothing to do with the halakha. That's why we have a huge discourse, right? Because there's certain people that have certain social conditions where they believe certain different ideas. Okay, so like we were talking about the other day, like if a group of Jews do something that's against the Torah, like what am I supposed to do about it? Just as an African American, this fool's gang banging. What am I supposed to do about it? Go down and be like, stop it. Stop doing illegal things. Okay, in a perfect world, yes. But in the reality, there's people that are corrupted out here and they have the same genealogy and the same belief system and maybe even dress the same way and espouse the same words. But at the end of the day, people are people. I'm responsible for me. So just because we're reading the same text does not under my life progression process to get here and your life progression process to get to the same place, it may look the same at the end result in the place of malchut, in the place of manifestation, but your process of getting there and my process is not the same. So what we're both experiencing is not the same, right? And that's why we could see when the Torah tells us that the Egyptians and the Jews, when they both went into the Nile River, the Egyptians only got blood and the Jews got water. Because we're at the same end product, but our understanding and our connections are different. So what we're experiencing is different. That's why God says you have to separate from other nations. So that's what I'm, working through on this process of just it's just processing is just this just this experience, right? Because it's everything about our society says no, your social security number, your race, your ethnicity, you're this, and even when you become religious, oh well, you're Hasidic, you're a Chassid, you're a Litvak, you're Sephardic, you're Yemenite, and you got all these categories, and it's just like what? At the end of the day, I'm good on that. I'm in the frame of Adam. I'm in the frame of Noah. I'm in the frame of Abraham. I'm in the frame of Jacob. I'm in the Jacob. I'm in the frame of Moshe Rabbeinu. I'm in the frame of the 12 tribes and the receiving of Mount Sinai. And that connection that brought us all the way back to the beginning of creation. And Chazal, our sages that gave us application through divine, inspiration, gave us application to these ways to connect to the flow of reality, right? And so that's where I'm at now. Within that, after the process of David and Solomon and many generations, we fell out of that total relationship and we went into diaspora. And so that's where you kind of have to work through things, right? And that's why education and learning is so important because you can learn the sages of the time of Babylon, right? When we first went into diaspora, you could learn the Yushalmi Talmud. You could learn the sages of, the 15th century, the 14th century, the 13th century, 11th century, all these things. You can learn those things and you could come up to conclusions based off of a tradition and a system. So you don't have to just figure it out and freestyle it on your own. There's been pondering and conversations about this for thousands of years that you can tap into that through learning to be able to connect to that process, right? And so from there, you can reconcile what people are doing today, what has existed throughout history. And then from there, you could decide what environments you want to be in. right? Because there's a lot of environments. But if you're not empowered to understand that you're a human first, your relationship with God is an expression of your humanness through your free will, right? And then from there, you have to decide, because the Torah is the only reality, the mitzvot are the only reality. And so from there, you have to be able to figure out how do you want to adhere to the Torah based off of environment. And you have to find the right environment. But a lot of people don't go this deep into it, right? And they just come in because there's a lot of light, there's a lot of positivity and these types of things. But it's like, no, equip yourself, learn, become a new person. You don't have to, be accepted by this particular community to become a new person through learning the Torah. You just need a rabbi, right? Someone who's went through the learning processes who could show you, hey, this is what we do for this, this is what we do for this is how we understand it, this, blah, blah, blah. And then that light of the Torah and the light of the sages will get you to a new level. Now, from there, from that clarity, you'll be able to decide. And that's what I was given when I went through the Kabbalah Center process, right? Because a lot of other people didn't have that experience. They just kind of were inspired and saw Christianity wasn't a thing and Islam didn't really connect to them. So Judaism was something that they got into, and they liked the Jewish community and they felt accepted, and the traditions make sense, and the Torah and the family structure and all these great things. So you see that, okay, fine. But in certain ways, you could find that in a lot of places, and that's not the mission, right? And so for me, I was at the Kabbalah Center for all those years, and that really allowed me to adapt and adjust and become a part of that. Not saying the Kabbalah Center is a precursor to conversion, but I'm saying as just a human being, it allowed me to reflect on these principles and these ideas for years before I said I have to keep it. Right? Because when I converted, that's what it was about. It was about saying, it's not, I'm doing it as a luxury, I'm doing it as a commandment. Right? And so if I'm going to follow this system of thought, I have to be in line with Chazal. I have to be in line with the sages. Now, if I want to do it as a luxury, which is holy, it's very holy to do it as a luxury, right? So don't get me wrong. There's no love lost for doing luxury. The thing is, by me, is that I needed to get married to someone who also wanted to do these things. So it wasn't like I could just do it by myself and be like, all right, well, I'm going to meet some girl, at some random business conference. No, I had to be in the community where people also agreed with that. So a big part of me converting was wanting to have a kosher family and build off of the legacy where I came from, which was great and it was powerful in tremendous materialism. But there was a next level, right? Which was like purity, kedusha, one with godness. And even though my parents connected to order and righteousness through Islam, it still, for me, wasn't that, and my sister obviously too, that wasn't, enough. That was great, but we saw that there was more to the reality, right? And there was a closer connection to God. So anyway, so we did, anyway, so that's part of this, this process of just, this conversation before Shabbat is just kind of like schmooze and just kind of like talk it out and just bring awareness of how big it is, and even if, I could have brought certain Gemara to, different ideas in the Gemara that talk about different things that different rabbis did before Shabbat and the sanctity before Shabbat. And I could have brought Midrashim that talk about certain things that were created before Shabbat, right? Certain things that are going on. But you know what? You'll get there, and we'll get there, and you may already know these things, right? So it's just more so talking it out and just bringing that connection for all of us. But does anybody have any points to share? Any ideas?
I have a question. Um, so what are your thoughts on just the methods? Because what we're talking about right now is, we're talking about Shabbat, we're getting ready for Shabbat, and we know how significant Shabbat is, and we're learning even more about how significant Shabbat is. From a basic understanding of Shabbat and how it's connected to the Jewish people. What are your thoughts on how it's presented to a community? Like, for example, Chabad to me, from what I perceive, Chabad is very outreach driven. You know, very outreach driven as far as in trying to reestablish Judaism to Jews, okay, and to basically wake up Jews that are basically like spiritually asleep. So, can we use that same method? Because Chabad really targets. It seems like they target um, certain communities, but from a more dealing with the internet, it's an open table, all right, of learning. But it seems like the efforts are directly towards the community to introduce Judaism or to reestablish Judaism within the hearts of Jews. So within other communities, such as that, like India or Nigeria or North America or African American communities and so forth, what are your thoughts as far as being as aggressive as Chabad into these communities to establish, because this technology, we know that it will, it's going to help communities. So what are your thoughts as far as the ways of introducing it to communities?
Yeah, so on that point, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's I don't know. I mean, I think it's easier for Chabad because they're dealing with people that are Eastern European, from Ukraine, from Russia, that had some type of Jewish identity that moved to America. You know what I mean? So they kind of like went out and like really was like bringing those people back to those traditions that their families had or were somewhere adjacent to when they lived in Eastern Europe. You know what I mean? In Ukraine's and in Moscow and St. Petersburg, all these types of places. So that's their history, right? They're not necessarily, I mean, are they open to all Jews? 100%. Like, do they believe in the Jewish soul? 100%. But the point is saying the traditions and the culture and those things are based around what's going on there, which is great. I like I said, I on Saturdays I pray in a Chabad shul, you know what I mean, and learn in the morning. Tomorrow morning, God willing, I'll be at a Chabad shul, right? And so anyway, so the point is just saying that. So that's over there, and I have great experiences. Now, in terms of Chabad as it relates to the African American community, see, the thing is that what makes Judaism different is that it's like a yoke. You know what I mean? It's like a very serious yoke that you have on you in terms of what your commitment is and what you adhere to. And our belief system is transgressing that is very detrimental, right, for the human soul and for their existence. So to go to someone and say, hey, you should be a Jew, you should keep the Torah, it's the best thing. But that may not be the best thing for that soul, right? The Torah and its commandments, like we don't believe as Jews, if you don't keep the Torah, you're going to hell, right? There's probably more non-Jews going to a better place in the afterlife than Jews, right? Just based off of the demand, right? So we don't go out and say like, oh well, you should become Jewish and you should keep the Torah, because it's not like that. It's not like Islam, or Christianity. Christianity is like you just got to believe. Islam is like you got to submit yourself, type of thing. And those things are cool, but I don't know if there's no punishment per se. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, okay, maybe you may not get in the kingdom of heaven. I don't know what they say, but the point is just saying that it's just a different thing. And I wouldn't even tell people as someone who loves Judaism, right? Who loves keeping the Torah, like I wouldn't go to people and say, oh, well, you should keep the Torah. Because not even when my sister converted, I didn't tell her what to do. They made their own decisions, right? And because I know how serious, and I'm not going to be responsible for their marriage, right? After that, right? they got to make that decision. They got to own it themselves, right? And so, so anyways, so yeah, so that's the point over there. You know what I mean? It's just you can't. This isn't like easy. This is like a special people. This is a special community and a special set of challenges. And to join into that is a huge blessing. Is to be a part of that. I'm talking about even if you say like you grew up, and if you're disconnected and you went off the path, to have the gift to come back, right? Because there's nothing else out there for me. For other people, I have friends, they're kids I grew up with, right? I'm from Calabasas, right? Who went as far as I did, right? All the kids there, right? Who went this far, right? So it's just saying that not everybody's about this life, right? Not everybody's trying to, go to these levels of separation and purity and focus. So why would I tell somebody all the great things about it, but understand there's a lot of isolation, there's a lot of, walking a path alone, knowing things, having things in your head that, separate you from a lot of people, having different customs, having different ways that, all the people you grew up with and kids you knew and this and that whole thing. It's just like, it's not the same no more, right? It's not the same no more, right? And so that, like, so to tell somebody that they should do that and to live in that way, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Now, if you want to tell somebody that living in the Torah way, and you have the 7 laws of Noah, and living righteously and connecting to things like Shabbat and connecting to these holy times that are expressed in the calendar, not as they have to do not that they're holding by us, but they acknowledge them and they see them as times of holiness or whatnot. Yeah, that's great. But to ask someone to go on this path, it's like, it's crazy. Bro, I'm in Jerusalem, bro. There's like, it's like wars gonna pop off any second. It's like, but I'm here because of that path of my spirituality that I went on, right? So to tell someone else to go on this journey is just like, oh, I can't, like I said, even by my own sister, it was just like, yeah, like I'm supportive, but I'm not going to be the rabbi and say like, oh, I'm going to come and, I'm going to show you how to do this and you got to convert this way. No, you guys need to figure it out because once you get into this, once you get in this situation, you can't get out, right? Once you get into this holiness, once your soul is endowed with this amount of light, you can't go out. And even if you go out, every step is a form of torture. You're going to know for the rest of your life that you're transgressing the Torah. You can't ever get away from it, right? Even if you block it out completely, your soul knows, your body knows everything. So, so it's a very big commitment, and it's a lot of hard work, and it's a whole big community, and there's a whole integration process in the community. You got to deal with that. You got to deal with a lot of insane people, right? The world has driven the Jewish people crazy, right? And it's insanity. Like the same stuff we see in the Black community, like how Black people just turn and we're just like just on this like different like level because of what we had to deal with and what it made us into. The same thing by the Jews. Complete insanity. Complete insanity. Israel's complete insanity. Complete. Like I can't, I'm really saying it's complete insanity. So, and what are you going to say on that? You like that? What are you going to say?
No, but okay. So let me ask you this here. So okay, so do you believe that halakha is what's keeping the Jewish mind from from tipping over?
That's it. That's it. That's all it is. that's that.
Percussion.
Yeah,
Chill.
that is it. You know what I'm saying? And we need miracles. We need miracles all the time here. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just the whole thing is dysfunctional. Like it's so I'm telling you, the only difference between the Jewish community and the African American community is the aspects of halakha. The same issues, the same traumas, the same battling. The whole thing. It's just like, it's totally, it's the same. It's like they are so black. You know what I'm saying? And the desire, the only difference is the halakha and the refinement and the masorah of the Torah, because it refines some of those big desires. It's able to organize it. It is. I mean, look how functional the black community was before the crack epidemic and welfare and the heroin epidemic and all these drugs that were put into the community. People were going to work. They were organized. They had their seder, their structures. They were questioning thought, reading philosophers. Challenging thought. I mean, that's how we got to where we're at now, right? Obviously, those things were systematically removed, but you can't remove them if there's a tradition. So there was no tradition there of anything other than Americanism. So once Americanism changed the trends and the ideas, so then we went in another direction. Now we're gangster rappers. You know what I'm saying? We went from Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, to Jay-Z, Tupac, and Kanye. You know what I mean? So when you don't have a tradition, you don't have a culture, they'll take you, you could go anywhere. So as with the Jewish community, they did the same thing. I mean, many Jews have fell, to secularism and integration and these ideas, but there's always been a steadfast group of people that have held by the halacha and fought for it, and because those other generations came out of it, and we're able to make it back. And me as an African American, who has descendants, who were Israelites on the west of Africa that came through the transatlantic slave trade, I'm here, and because of the Jewish world and how there was those strong Jews that kept that, I was able to go and combat and convert out of that nature that my ancestors were raised into, which was like slavery and captivity and separation from God's light. So I was able to, go through that process of full correction, and I'm going even further, and I'm going to connect with the Africans. You know what I mean? And I'm building with them. You know what I mean? So the point is just saying. So that's the thing. So yeah. So that's the only thing on getting people involved. If someone comes to me and someone reaches out to me and say, "Hey, I want to learn some Torah," all right. So I'm like, "Let's go." You know what I mean? But I can't go and put out advertisement and say, "Hey, I mean, will I put out advertisement and I'm doing what I'm doing?" Yeah, but I'm saying those people still have to contact me. You know what I mean? And they have to contact, say, Chief Rabbi Pentecost or other people, because it's like there's a lot of black people that have the souls of Jacob, that extension of that soul. And so when the opportunity comes to learn the Torah and to observe the mitzvot, they're going to run to it. Like it's just in their soul to do it. So that's anyways, all right, so we'll figure it out. But yeah, that's just
That's good.
Go ahead. We got on that?
No,
What? Yeah, no, I would say that's good, Chief Rabbi, because we definitely sometimes we have to we have to just kind of step back and just walk through our own process, and just process everything as we're going through, and understand that it's not like it's a little different, because in a sense you feel like there's a serious severance of how can I say it? There is a severance there that takes place, and you have to almost like go through a grieving process for many of the communities and experiences that you've gone through. But at the same time, just continue to press forward with Hashem and know that He's leading and guiding you. And for those who see the light that you will illuminate from Hashem, then if it's for them to, walk on that journey, alongside you or in some form of fashion, then I know He will take care of that. So it's just, just trying to turn on that purpose and intentions for what you as the individual are doing, and just know that as you continue to do it, Hashem is going to take care of all the rest. And so just being comfortable in that it can be a little, challenging, especially when you come from a background of wanting to just pull everybody along, just pull it. But you look back and you see the results of trying to hold everybody's hand and pull everybody along. You see that it's very interesting, because I'll tell you this really quick story, really quick. But we were trying to figure out about eating certain meats. This was many years ago, and I remember my Ish said, "No, we're gonna stay away from chicken. I feel like we need to stay away from chicken, right?" And we're like, "Okay," like, why? But we couldn't really put any, like, what Hashem was actually dealing with him on. As time progressed on, we realized, like, oh, okay, it's because of the way things are processed, the slaughtering, and according to the Holocaust. Well, now we're in 2025, and fast forward, we several years back realized, like, okay, we need to be eating kosher meats and so forth, and if we're going to consume meat. So we of course take the trips to to Dallas to get purchase kosher meats. 2025, we have family members, they're calling us, they're like, listen, hey, don't y'all eat any chicken, all this, bird flu, all this stuff, and this and that, and da, da, da. And they was like, we know y'all don't eat chicken, but we just saying don't, don't. And we're like, wow, y'all know we don't eat chicken. So I said, but guess what? We eat chicken. They're like, what? What do you mean you eat chicken? I was like, yeah, we
Fried chicken too.
we eat chicken. And I was like, the thing is that we had to get, the understanding, this is the way we're supposed to be able to consume certain meats. And we didn't understand at that time. But here we are, like, what if we had went like on a whole tangent telling everybody, don't eat chicken, don't eat chicken, don't eat chicken, and then we realized that the reason that Hashem was dealing with my husband about it was because of the way in which it was processed. And like I said, we didn't know all of the Holocaust about it, but learning it. And so that was just one example, because now they're calling us, telling us, don't eat chicken, don't eat chicken. We're like, no, we eat it. We just drive a couple of hours to go get it.
But rather, it's more so, don't eat that chicken.
Yeah.
You can eat this one over here, but you can't eat that one.
So you can't really, we gotta just stay in our lane, I guess.
Well, I mean, but also having in mind, first of all, it's a great story. It's a great story. But the thing is, also having in mind Joseph, right? Joseph is like, he went through that whole process of being separated from his family in that position, that exalted position he was put in, create an opening for his family to come in and eventually be a part of the redemption, right? Because eventually his father, his siblings, everyone, came in, and their children, and they settled in Egypt, in Goshen, right? But that had to do with Joseph's position, right? So the thing is, like, when we go on our journeys, it's like we're creating opening. Like, look at I just gave you an example of my sister. I had nothing to do with that. Well, you don't think me being here in Israel had anything to do with that? You don't think me going on my journey, me converting, you don't think that had anything to do with it? Obviously. But I didn't have to say a word. I didn't have to convince. And it altered the future of my family, right? Because now I have a sister that's keeping Pesach, and her husband, and her kids, right? And now I have my kids. So now my other siblings, by definition or by default, are going to somehow be engaged in those spiritual experiences going forward, way even after past my parents. I didn't say anything, right? So all we have to do is be a light. Hashem said to convince the nations. He said, be a light to the nations. Just be a light. Just be full of light. Full of light. That's it. People like, oh man, you know what? Shoot, Mordecai got some light on. What he got? What they doing over there in Israel? What they do to him in Israel? I want some of that. I want some of that. Right? So all I got to do is just be a light and just get on bigger platforms. And people be like, who's this brother right here, man? What's he doing? Like, yeah, man, I'm doing my thing. And it's something inside of them because they have that connection, right? They have that connection, something inside of them, it starts triggering them like, I feel something. I don't know what this is. Like, yeah, God's getting in there. That's the spirit of your ancestors is being awoken. And that's it. That's it. And keep it, simple, from that standpoint. But you don't have to go out recruiting people, convincing that. That's those other ideas. God message doesn't. You don't have to convince people to God's message. It's not. It's inherent. It's inherent, and they just need to see signs of holy people living righteously. Right. The biggest thing that Jewish people do every week is you see Jews. If you're somewhere around the Jewish community, you see Jews pushing a stroller, going to shul and back, wearing suits and this, doing the Shabbat. That, right? I remember, and I'll leave you guys with this. Right? I remember, before I finished my conversion, I was, I was like, I was in the process, and on this particular Friday night, I didn't go to a Shabbat meal. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna hang out. This girl that I knew from where I grew up. She was living in the city. We connected on social media. She was Jewish actually, and I was like, I'm gonna hang out with her Friday night. What's the big deal? I got to go to Shabbat to shul. What's the big deal, right? I could do this, right? This is before I converted, way before I converted. All right, so calm down. And so I went and I hung out with this girl, and we went out. We had drinks, whatever. And I remember when we were driving there, I saw Jews, going to shul, right? Because it was like Friday night. And on the way back, I just remember driving again, and I saw Jews, walking back. I don't know where they were going, but you could say they're religious Jews. And I said to her in the car, I was like, that's where I need to be at right there. I need to be walking with them. Like, what the hell am I doing driving in this car? That's what in my head was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I need to be right there. This is where I need to be at. I was in the middle of like Santa Monica, right? I've never been over there, in terms of like a Jewish dynamic in my life. But the point is just saying that, I knew that's where I wanted to be at. I was there. I was in a car with this really attractive girl. We just went to this restaurant, this whole thing. We're chilling, the whole thing. And then I'm seeing the religious Jews walking, and I'm like, that's where I should be at right now. And so there was no one there convincing me to do that. There was no like people like, yeah, man, you should keep Shabbat. You should keep Shabbat. No, but in my soul, I just knew that's where I wanted to be. And I didn't want to be driving in the car watching the guy keeping Shabbat. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, so we'll stop here. We'll continue on.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
For me, it's just like, I see our people, and I see the beauty of our people. I see the inheritance, I believe. And I just feel like if we had that path, if we had the structure, I think our people would fall into this, because we believe that, our inheritance is from the children of Israel. I don't think our inheritance is being righteous Noahides. I just don't. I mean, I get it, but it's like, yeah, you keep the 7 laws. Okay, you're righteous. It's good. It's great. But it's like, if you look at us, our impact on the world, are how we've overcome so much, and the resiliency that we show, and the heart that we show. Like, we've never shown signs of wanting vengeance or for the things we've been through. We the ones saying, come to the cookout. We treat you like one of us. That's Israel. So like, for me, I just feel like I do understand, like, you don't post like in Judaism. I understand that 100%. But I also feel like there's not maybe it shouldn't be, but there's not a conscious effort of, what, hold on. We understand that these people might be a part of our tribe. Let's reach out to them. There is none of that. Is that because of racial dynamics? We can't, can't have a blind eye and say, oh no, it's not. Yes, it is. Part of it is. So like I've said it before, I feel like if people found out that what the end doesn't matter on the soul level, no, we understand it. But if they found out that Jacob, Isaac and Abraham look like me, they might have a real problem with that. So I just feel like if our people got the opportunity to reach out to it, because we hold on to Christianity, and it's part of Torah. You know what I'm saying? We know it's idolatry in the terms of JC, but it's Torah based, and look how we hold on to it. look how we grasp it. So if we had a pathway, I just feel like it will take off. Yes, it's a lot of, it's a lot of commitment. But look at our people. We are the most committed people. We're also stiff-necked. We get that. It shows signs. You can see the spiritual, synergies between us and the Israelites. We believe that on the west coast of Africa, that there was Israelite. Okay, that's the path. And it's just we had that knowledge and that understanding. I think it'll be a huge awakening, and then that light for the nations could truly happen. In a way, I'm not saying that Jewish people aren't being that light, but we influence everything. Everyone want to be like us, but they don't want to be us. If you want to talk about anti-Semitism, anti-black is all around the world. No one wants to even, but they want to imitate everything that we do. So I just feel if we had that pathway, and maybe it is through, like you said, Rob, like your example, like it brought me. I'm like, okay, Baruch Hashem. Maybe my example, it will help. But I think for myself, like I talk to my people especially when I speak, and I speak to them in the holy tongue. They're like, oh, what's going on? But it's not just a curiosity. It's a connection to that energy from that ancestors. So like, oh, whoa, I know what that is. I think. We have people that are talking in tongues. It's not talking. They're trying to imitate going back to the holy language, but they don't have the path anymore. It's been separated. It's been severed. So for me, I'm not trying to post a lot, but for my community, for like my people, oh yeah, I'm in there. I'm like, hey, I'm not saying you got to keep this, but you need to know about this. You need to know it. You need to hear it and understand it coming from my mouth. Someone that looks like you, someone that understands you, because it's not coming from the other side. They're not coming. They're not coming to our communities. Hey, it's just be a no hide. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think for our inheritance, I think it's more for us. I just want to say that.
Yeah. Can I, I know, Rabbi, I know you want to get, I know you got to go. I want to just say, told because I have the same sentiments, and of course, having a long Hebrew Israelite, background. Um, the way I view Chabad is aggressively going after. I saw a video, guy in Australia, rabbi in Australia. He was going through a phone book just looking up Jewish names, and he was calling people up saying, "Hey, you have Jewish background, you have Jewish." And when he found anybody, he was having them rap Tefillin and so forth. And so we have that same within our community. We have that same sentiment, because when I look at my community, I don't look at African American. I look at Israelites. That's just how I see. So for me, when I look at Israelite and look at my community, I look at it from the standpoint, I don't understand Noah laws. I mean, I understand it, I know it, but I don't feel like that's for my community. When I look at it and I say, man, our people are breaking the Torah, and that's detrimental to our community. And that's keeping our communities within a dark place. And so even though I understand, we are light, and our practice and our commitment level to Torah, it's noticed. It is noticed. But I believe that we do have to have a sense of an aggressive approach when it comes to our people, because our people are hungry. They're hungry, especially right now. Within the Hebrew Israelite community, within the Black community, you be surprised. We just stop. We can stop off at a convenience store, and I'm telling you, drug deals are going on, and it's like, hey, brother, let's talk. Let's talk for a minute, man. Where you at with the Bible? Where you at with the scriptures? Where you at? And our people stop. They stop, literally stop, and they want to hear the truth. They want to hear the truth. They don't want to be lied to. And so the reason I was asking that question about, even talking to them about Shabbat, I believe that, having a situation whereas the Shabbat is introduced and the Shabbat is talked about and halakha is brought in, because a lot of our communities, a lot they're keeping Holocaust. They just don't know it. There's aspects to it. And so I appreciate that. I really do. So that.
OTL for president. So the thing is, so I'm with you. I mean, I get it, and I think a person should definitely bring people into the fold of the Torah, because I think there's different stages, right? I think one stage is a person who doesn't know very much, and I would think the 7 laws of Noah would be a big jump, right? By accepting that there's an order and there's a law and there's a system that exists in the world, from versus having 0. And then from there, then if that person got to that and says, you know what, I want to keep more of the Torah, or I know that there's more Torah and I want to keep that, those are the people that have the big desire, right? So like I said, like I was at the Kabbalah Center, right? You would think with all the Rothberg and the Ari and the R Slug and all these people, you would think everybody who came through there would want to convert to Judaism, right? No, it's like 6, 7 people. I was like the last person they did it with. Rothberg said, he told Yehuda, like, after this whole thing with me, because I want to keep all the Torah. That's why I got to the point. He told Yehuda, we're not doing anything like this anymore. It's like, this is it. That's what he told Yehuda. I was like the 7th person he ever did this with. And so that dynamic is like, okay, fine. And we can figure it out. We have Chief Rabbi Pinchas. We have a whole system for people who want to go to that extra step. That's it. But I'm just saying, if you want to go on the street and remove people from selfishness and move them into sharing, right? Okay, like that's the revolution, right? But to say that, to go to someone that says like, oh well, you just need to keep, you just need to keep the laws, and I hear that, and a lot, like a lot of the Hebrew Israelites, the culture, I'm talking about the camps. A lot of the culture, is in that, right? Like you keep the laws and this and this, these different types of things. But like, if you wanted to create your own thing, yes, you could do that. Now, if it's about being connected to the collective group of people that define themselves as Jews or Israelites, whatever, that's another thing, right? So, like for example, the people in Nigeria. So the people in Nigeria, they're keeping, right? They've been keeping it for a long time, right? Their parents were keeping, in some cases, even grandparents. But they've always, even before then, had a history that they were Israelites, right? That's how they understood themselves, way before the state of Israel, way before Art Scroll, right? They've understood themselves in this way. So you have that. So the thing is saying that on that point, right? On that point, if they want to be accepted by the individual, by the Jewish community as the collective, that means they have to come in as individuals, right? So that's one perspective, is to say like, okay, there's, say there's 250,000, Igbos that keep Torah, whatever, but they want to be a part of this collective community that they haven't been a part of. Okay, so from that perspective, they come in and they say, we're individuals, right? So you have 250,000 people that want to convert to Judaism or be a part of Judaism or have a Jewish past, and they're returning to it. Okay, fine. But then there's another perspective, which is, okay, we have a community, right? And we have a community, and we have our rabbis, and we have, our process for weddings. We hold by the Talmud, we hold by the Shulchan Aruch. This is how we do our divorces. This is how we deal with legal issues and these various topics. This is how we deal with circumcision. This is how we deal with the laws of Shabbat. This is what we hold by, blah, 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 blah. And then from there, now you're saying, I want my community to be accepted in a broader set of communities. That's a completely different conversation, right? And so that's the work we're doing by the Nigerians, is getting them from the place of individuals to establishing their own situation, right? To create their own rabbinical, courts, and their own rabbis, and do their own circumcisions and that whole thing. And that's Rabbi Pinchas's vision, Chief Rabbi Pinchas's vision, right? And I learned about it through Rabbi Pinchas. It's not Chief Rabbi Pinchas. It's not like something I came up with. It's something I learned by him. No one in my yeshiva was thinking about African Judaism and developing court systems, right? Now I'm in the middle of it. But the point is just saying that that's how you do it over there. So if, say, Black, African American, Black people, if they want to say, oh, well, we want to create our own communities and we want to create our own Rabbanim and we want to do that, okay, fine, you could do that. And then your community, right? Like Rabbi Matthew, Rabbi Levi, Rabbi Ford, maybe that was their mistake, right? The commandment keepers, maybe that was their mistake, that they didn't create rabbinical courts, right? They had rabbis, but they didn't create courts, because courts that are connected to the Gemara, right, go on beyond whoever's in charge, right? Because it's the next generation. And they are presiding based off of the traditions of 2,000 years ago, right? The Torah was given, before we went into the land of Israel. Because the Torah was given to us. That's the whole point of Shavuot, right? The whole concept of Shavuot is reminding us of the message that the Torah was given to us before we went into the land of Israel. Not right before, but way before. Like the land of Israel and the Torah were two different sequences of generations, right? And so that's a reminder that the concept of the receiving of the Torah, right, it doesn't matter, it's beyond the land of Israel. So we're in diaspora, so it doesn't matter, the Torah keeps going, right? It was never given, it's not contingent of Israel, it was contingent of being in a desert, a broken people with no money, no nothing, leaving foreign land, no nothing, just completely like nomadic. And they received God's message. So even now, we're in the same place. We're not at home, right? I'm in Jerusalem, we're still not at home, but Jerusalem isn't fully home until Mashiach is here, right? That's when we elevate to the next level. So we should all merit to be here for that and experience it. But the point is saying that, so that's the point, right? The point is saying that the where we're at right now, right, and where we're going to is building to this place of like completion, right? And this aspect of completion, and there's an aspect of, so many mitzvahs we can do, right? But on Shabbat, right, we have the ability to connect to all the mitzvahs, all the things that are inside of the Torah, all the tentacles that are expressed inside of the Torah. We're able to bring that light down during Shabbat. Does that answer the question at all? All right.
Oh,
So
yeah,
anyway, go ahead. All right, you go. Okay. Tino, does that answer your question?
I mean, yeah, I get
I
it.
mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just
No,
saying,
no,
like,
no, I get it. Like
yeah,
I get it from both sides. You know what I mean? Like I get it from the perspective of where you're coming from, and I get it from like it can't like can't just go out and be like, hey guys, keep Torah. It's like, no, it's a process. It's a process that you have to go through. Like, the case in Nigeria with the Igbos, like they have a tradition of, hey, we were Israelites. So that kind of creates that pathway to reach out. For us, it's like we don't have it. We don't
yeah,
have any traditions. Like I remember with Rabbi Matthews and Commander Keepers, I remember, internal conversations while I was, embedded in the Hebrew Israelite community was one thing is when they did try to reach out, they didn't get the support that was needed. And some people felt like they should have, like you said, did their own thing. When they reached out, it was a static. And maybe it was obviously that was Hashem's plan, but it was a static with them trying to integrate within the Jewish community. And for our people, we're not Eastern European. So it's like those aren't our traditions, those aren't our culture, those aren't our mannerisms. So it's gonna be hard for us to just drop it and come in the pathway of being European. Like we're African, we're African American, we're American. You know what I mean? Like we don't we don't even have our culture with Africa in a sense. I mean, like being African American, Africans look at us totally different. Like one of my best friends is Nigerian. He's a Buddha. They look at us totally different. It's like, yeah, I ain't one of us. We like y'all not one of us either. But it's like, but we came from the same place. Like, it's an interesting dynamic and interesting conversation that's happening. So I just think for the African American community, it's like it almost feels like it's going to have to be a new thing because for the totality of it, and that's a very ambitious statement. I get that, and I'm not saying I'm the one to do it, but I just feel like it's something there, and it's just getting there is it might not be in the traditional sense. It might not be in the sense of okay, we're going to integrate into the Jewish community. Like it might be a little harder for our people because we all obviously have our own trauma with white people in general. Rather is, so you're European or you're from Italy, you're from the UK, you're from Poland. Like, for us, it's like, hey, we just have this blockage in a way, you know what I mean? And rightfully so. And it's something that Hashem created for us to overcome. Like, it's something that I think, Rob, we talked about, like being black, you got to be perfect out here. You got to be smarter. You got to be more charismatic. You got to, your P's and Q's, everything got to be perfect or there's severe consequences. I'm like, but what's the purpose of that? Maybe it is for halakha. Maybe that's it because halakha, like you said, once you in, you can't get out. Like when I was younger, it was like some mob stuff. Like once you're in, you can't get out. It's like once you get that Torah on you, ain't no ifs or buts about it. And maybe that's the perfection that Hashem has given the black community that we have to be so perfect. Maybe the end goal is Holocaust. I don't know, but it did answer it, for me, Baruch Hashem. But I think it's an ongoing conversation, and I think just putting the energy out in the world, we'll see what Hashem has planned for all of humanity because it's not just a black thing, it's not just a white thing, it's a human thing. So Baruch Hashem.
Yeah. So. So on that point, I think we're all on the same page. I mean, the thing is saying that at the end of the day, the greatest accomplishment we can make in this lifetime is changing our own personal nature, right? To be more sharing and to be more of a giver and to be more restrictive to our ego and our evil inclinations. In restricting that power changes the world. Now, the stage past that is being that inspiration for other people, that other people could look at you and say, like, hey, here's a guy who's just like me, right? And this is something Rabbi Shlomo Arush, he said to me directly. He said, you have such a bigger chance than I do to make an impact in the world. Rabbi Arush, big Rabbi Arush, best rabbi. He said to me, he's like, yeah, you have a bigger chance of making impact than I do. He said, because, you could go to people all around the world and just say, hey, I was just like you, and I learned about these things and then I went out and I did them and, I transformed and became the person I am today. So I can't do that. You could do that, So anyways, the point is just saying that we have to all be thinking about affecting the world in a healthy way. The best level is just being a light, and the best way of being a light is by just keeping the Torah and loving, unconditional love in the house, shalom bayis, all these types of things. And through that process, people will say, hey, what are you doing? Like somebody comes in and, they got like a little 6-pack. Their shoulders are a little bit more bulked out. And like, hey man, what you doing? Man, you getting bulked out? What you doing? I changed my diet and I start. Oh, really? What you eating now? Oh, you doing that? Okay. And you working out? Oh, okay. You doing that? You doing? Oh, maybe I should get on that. So imagine what that same impact is spiritually. When someone sees you spiritually and they see you transformed and they see you glowing, And they're like, hey, man, what are you doing? I'm like, hey, man, I stopped gossiping. But we mean stuff, anything to do with gossip, anything like that, I rejected it. It's not in my life. I don't have nothing to do with it. Or whatever, or I stopped, I stopped looking at social media past this time or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I put filters on my internet, so certain images can come, whatever, everyone has a thing, right? I'm talking more to people who are listening, right? But the point is just saying that these things create a shift, and that shift creates a restriction, and that restriction creates a spark. And that's where that light comes from. So we want to be in that place of pausing, and I guess the technique to use for this, we talked about it, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before. Pausing and saying, is what I'm about to say good for my soul? Pausing, is what I'm about to eat good for my soul? Pausing, is what I'm looking at good for my soul? Pausing, what I'm listening to, is it good for my soul, right? All these gates that come in and out of our body, we want to be able to pause and think about our neshama and think about, is this good for our neshama or not? Because we're in this world to correct our soul, right? So the more we're conscious of our soul, the more that light of the soul will be a part of our conscious experience, right? And so we'll be able to be that light, because a lot of times we are already that light. We just don't realize it because we're not acknowledging our soul. But we've been a light our whole life. That's why people have been jealous of us. That's why people have got in the way, because everyone's always noticed our light. We haven't noticed it. Why? Because we haven't connected to our neshama, right? So, in the spirit of what Otino is saying in terms of reaching out to everybody, the greatest. Why the guy walking around with the gold chain on? I mean, not the gold chain, the iced out necklace, right? He's walking in the room. He's walking in. He's saying, "Hey, I got an iced out necklace. Has my number on it. I got my zip code, whatever." He walks in and he's saying, like, "Hey," he walks in that club. He's like, "Hey, everybody, I'm balling. I'm balling. I'm making money. Look at my necklace. Look at my necklace. I'm balling." And everybody's like, "Man, look at his necklace, man. He's balling, man. He must know something right. He must know the right way to do something, right? He must know the right way to do something. So therefore, I'm trying to stand next to him. Like, even the girls are like, "Hey, man, he must know something. Look, he got that necklace on. He knows how to get the sustenance." I mean, she may only understand that as cash, right? But she's saying that dude, he knows a path to sustenance, right? So that path, the sustenance that he has, shoot, I want to stand next to him. And he got like 10 racks in his pocket, right? Like, his pockets are puffed out. They ordered the Grey Goose. They coming out. They got the drinks. They got the chains. Everything. Boo, they iced out. They have a path to sustenance. So I'm gravitating towards that. So
Right.
Go ahead. You like that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. Matter of fact, I'm thinking of you gave me an idea about where to put that focus at. If we begin to channel turn the eyesight away from the things that this society deems to be valuable, that makes us stand out. But if we look at within our communities and we say, listen, these are the things that stand out to us like an ice necklace. A successful marriage. We have elders that have been married for over 50 years. We need to look at that and say, what are they doing? What did they do? Well-behaved children. Man that worked on his job for 20 years and 30 years, retired. Hey, man, what did you do? Though guy that's making wise investments. Just those things, I think that we need to begin to magnify within our communities. When you see respectful young men, that if you just happen to see a young man open the door, rise when his elders walk in, those things are happening every day within our communities. And I think that we need to make those the jewels that are noticed, and really magnify that and apply show how those attributes, those character traits, those success stories, how halakha applies to that, how that technology, how halakha helps those things, helps build that within a community. And so that you just gave me a great an idea.
Yeah.
So that.
No, exactly. And then on that point, exactly what you're saying is saying that that concept of like when that guy comes in with the chain and he comes into the club or he comes into the party or whatever, what he's trying to emulate is the shining of the soul. That's what the chain represents. That's what the bling represents, is the shining of the soul, the bracelets, the shining of the hands. Ma'aseh yadayim, right? The work of the hands. That's what all that represents. What we're saying is that by the points that you just brought out, right? The points that you just brought out, by doing the efforts, we get that shine without any material. We get this, our soul will shine, our hands will shine, our efforts will shine. And look at our great leaders that we've had throughout history. They didn't have any bling. Martin Luther King never had the iced out chain, right? So it's just saying that, and I'm saying by him, like that's not even high level. Like I'm saying it, right? So, anyways, the point is just saying that this is the point of the transformation. It's just being that light, being that point of restriction. And the thing is, we're putting out energies in the universe that we don't even know about, right? We don't understand how blessed we are to know about this technology and these paths, because this is it. All right, so I got to get ready for Shabbat, but we're on the same page. We're going to continue on Sunday about the show. I have some big interviews next week that we're going to be. I just some this following, but it'll be part 2. So this week, so a lot of things are moving forward. But the key thing is like we're getting ready for Mount Sinai, right? We're getting ready for Mount Sinai, and I think Pesach Sheni, right? Was it Sunday night? Start Sunday night. So that's something else we got to figure out. Pesach Sheni, how to work on that. Anyways, Baruch Atah Adonai, Shabbat Shalom. Baruch Atah Adonai.